So again, Algebra 2, we are talking about x and y intercepts today. A point at which the graph intersects the x-axis is called the x-intercept, and we have an x-intercept right here. Likewise, the point at which the graph intersects the y-axis is called the y-intercept. Okay, it wants us to identify the x and y-intercept of the graph shown to the right. My x-intercept is -3 and 0. My y-intercept is 0 and 4. Okay, I want us to take note here that for my x-intercept, what my y value is. So for my x-intercept, what is my y value? My y value is equal to 0. For my y-intercept, let's take note of what my x value is. For my y-intercept, my x value is equal to 0. Okay? All right. The x-intercept is also referred to as several different names. It could be referred to as a root. It could be called a 0, or it could be called a solution to the equation. All right, to find the x-intercept of an equation, set the y equal to 0, set the y equal to 0, and solve for x. Again, if we look up here at our note, for our x-intercept, my y is equal to 0. To find the y-intercept, you set the x equal to 0 and solve for y. And again, to find the y-intercept, we set up here that x is equal to 0. That's why we made that note up there. You can use these points to graph an equation. Okay, so for this example, it says find the x and y-intercept of the equation y equals -2x plus 5. So for our x-intercept, again, we need to set our y equal to 0. So let's do that. We have 0 equals -2x plus 5. When we solve this, we're going to subtract 5 from both sides. That gives us -5 equals -2x. Then we're going to divide by -2. So our x-intercept in this case is negative divided by negative makes it a positive 5/2. That is my x-intercept. All right? And we can also write that as an ordered pair. Let me do that. So my ordered pair for my x-intercept is going to be 5/2, 0. So it can be written either way, actually. All right, let's take a look and let's find the y-intercept. So we have, remember, when we find our y-intercept, we're going to take our x value and set it equal to 0. So let's do that. We have y equals that's not a negative, y equals -2 times 0 plus 5. So when we do this, when -2 times 0 is gone, and we have y equals 5. So the ordered pair for my y-intercept then is going to be 0, 5. So it can be written either way. It can be written as y equals 5, or it could be written as 0, 5, the ordered pair. All right, so let's take a look at our examples here. They want us to find the x and y-intercept of each equation, and then they want you to graph it using our x and y-intercept. So let's find our x-intercept by setting y equal to 0. So we have 0 equals 5 times x minus 1. So start to solve for x, we're going to add 1 to both sides. And that gives me, I don't know why I put a -1. Add 1 to both sides, that gives me 1 equals 5 times x. Then we're going to divide by 5. And that gives me x equals 1/5. So my x-intercept then is going to be 1/5 and 0. Now let's find our y-intercept. that means my x is going to be set equal to 0. So for my y-intercept, I'm going to have y equals 5 times 0 minus 1. 5 times 0 is gone. My y-intercept is negative 1. So my ordered pair for this one is going to be 0, negative 1. So let's plot these points. So my x-intercept, I have a fraction. That's okay. We're going to do the best we can to graph it. So my x-intercept is going to be at 1/5 and 0. So that's going to be very close to 0, 0. I'm going to do the best I can here without actually touching. There we go. We're going to call that our x-intercept. My y-intercept is at 0 and negative 1, which is right here. So even though these points are really, really close together, we can use those points to graph the line. I'm going to use one of these over here to make it straight. So using those 2 points, there we go. I have a line on there. And of course, it's going to continue forever and ever in both directions. And these are my 2 points that I found, my 2 intercepts, my x-intercept and my y-intercept. Okay? Don't be afraid of those fractions. Just estimate where it goes on the graph and plop it down on there. All right, let's take a look at number 3. I'm going to leave number 2 for you to try. Let's take a look at number 3, finding the x and y-intercept. So my x-intercept. Again, we're going to plug in 0 for y. So we have 0 equals negative 3x plus 16 over 3. Okay, when I solve for x, I'm going to subtract 16 over 3 from both sides. And that gives me negative 16 over 3 equals negative 3 times x. I'm going to divide both sides by negative 3. Divide by negative 3. And when I get my answer here, that gives me x equals 16/9. So my ordered pair for my x-intercept is going to be 16/9, 0. So that's my x-intercept. All right, let's look at my y-intercept. And again, my x value is going to be 0. So I'm going to plug in 0 for our x. So we have y equals negative 3 times 0 plus 16 over 3. Again, that is gone, and my y value is going to be 16 over 3. So that makes my x-intercept as 0, 16 over 3. Okay, so let's guesstimate as best we can on this graph where these points are. When we look at 16/9, that's about 1.8. So 1.8 comma 0 is where we're going to put that guy. So over here on my graph, 1.80, that's going to be real close to 2, so not quite on 2, but real close to it. So there's my x-intercept right there. And then 16 over 3, that is 5.3. So this one is really 0 and 5.3. So let's kind of find it close on the graph here for us. So 0 for my x and 5.3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is going to be right above, right there. And we can use those 2 points to graph our line. And let's use a real, there we go. And we will put arrows on each end to indicate that it's going to go on forever and ever. Okay, we've just graphed that using the x and y intercept. All right, let's take a look at number 5. This will be our last one. I'm going to leave the rest of them for you to try. Our x-intercept. We're going to plug in 0 for y again. So we have negative 5x minus 4 times 0 equals negative 24. So when I have negative 4 times 0, that's going to go away, and I'm left with negative 5x equals negative 24. I'm going to divide both sides by negative 5, and that leaves me with x equals negative divided by a negative is going to be 24/5. So my x-intercept then is going to be 24/5, comma 0. And my y-intercept. again, for my y-intercept, I'm going to plug in x equals 0. So I'm going to have negative 5 times 0 minus 4 times y equals a negative 24. And again, negative 5 times 0 is nothing. It's gone. So negative 4 times y equals negative 24. When I divide both sides by negative 4, I end up with y is equal to positive 6. So my y-intercept then is going to be 0, 6. Okay, so let's plot those points and draw our line. 24/5 is going to be about 4.8. 4.8, comma 0 is my x-intercept there. 4.8, comma 0, so almost a 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh my gosh, it's hard to see. Right there, maybe. Yes, so almost a 5. And our y-intercept is going to be 0, positive 6. Right there. And I'm going to use my straight line here to draw a line for those 2 points. And there we go. Again, this is a continuous function, so we need to make sure we put our arrows on each end of my graph. Okay, so there we go, finding the x and y intercepts and using those intercepts to graph your function. Okay, I'm going to have you guys do the rest of the problems, so you guys need to try number 2, number 4, number 6, and number 7.